welcome to the news. I am Willimina Buku. Coming up in this edition, Director General of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Badia, updates President Bio on projects funded by the bank in Sierra Leone. Ministry of Finance commences 2019 policy hearings in Freetown. And National Revenue Authority holds session with civil society organizations on local revenue generation. All these stories and more lined up in tonight's edition of the news. The Director General of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Badia, Dr. Sidi Uta, has updated President Julius Maada Bio on different projects his institution is funding in the country. Dr. Sidi Uta informs the President that Badia is currently financing 3 projects in the country. Hawa Mosire has more.
Government of Sierra Leone, Director General of the African Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Dr. Sidi Oluta, stated that his meeting with the President is to get first-hand information of his administration's priority in the area of support. Dr. Sidi Oluta stated that Badia is a multilateral financial institution created for the economic development of Africa, adding that Badia has been embarking on different projects in Sierra Leone. He has also held consultations with the Minister of Finance and team to plan for the next 5 years as they want to hear from the President as well as to know his administration's key priorities.
So we have 3 main mandates as a development bank. First is to provide soft lending for long-term development projects. Second, to provide push for Arab capitals to invest in sub-Saharan Africa, and third, to provide technical assistance. So we have been doing very well on the first and third mandate, but so far the second mandate we didn't very much.
President Julius Maada Bio commended Badia for the support they have been rendering to the government and the people of Sierra Leone. His government, he noted, is new and wants it on a strong foundation with regards to development. President Bio informed the team about necessary measures put in place in stabilizing the country's economy, which was in a very bad shape when his administration took over office.
What we need really is a quick support system, and also that is for the short term, and then going forward we have few projects that fall in line with the programs we set for ourselves. What we want to achieve at the end is a solid foundation for development. We've had a lot of false starts before. That is because the foundation on which the development process of any country should be built were just flimsy.
The President also informed the Badia team about the free quality education program that will commence this academic year, which is one of the new directions agenda. This, the President said, the process is ongoing, but the government still needs the necessary support for it to be sustainable.
We want to lay a solid foundation that will really support, give a forward momentum to the development process. So what we want really is work very closely. We are committed, we are working, there's transparency and that there's value for money, and that every penny spent or given to this government will be well spent. And so we want to have a very good relationship with the bank, and I'm pleased that you really took time to come.
In another development, the National Civil Registration Authority Director General Mohamed Masakwe and team have verified President Bio at State House. Before the process, the Director General updated the President about the entire process in verifying and updating the civil and public servants receiving salaries from the government's consolidated fund. The aim, he said, is to help clean up the payroll and upgrade the system. The cooperation is high from the public as his office is working in close collaboration with other stakeholders and the civil societies across the country to move the process forward.
Your Excellency, sir, and it is of high interest to the international community, the development partners, They have expressed so much satisfaction with the leadership that he continues to show in terms of transparency and accountable governance. And they are following up the process. That is why at NCRA we have made sure that we emulate the example of having an inclusive approach in whatever we do to enhance transparency.
President Bio commended them for embarking on such a difficult task and called on them to make sure that they target each and every government institution.
Task of verification and updating, and I wish you every success as we embark on the venture to try to streamline the pay system. I wish you every success. Thank you very much.
The Deputy Ambassador attached to the Sierra Leone Embassy in Geneva, Switzerland, Mohamed Yubi Safa Esquire, has bid farewell to President Bio at State House. He thanked President Bio for the confidence reposed in him to represent Sierra Leone in the United Nations in Geneva. SABC TV News Eye in Freetown, Hawa Mosiri reporting.
Still with the presidency, President Bio has traveled to Ghana to attend the state funeral of former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan. So late Kofi Annan will be buried on Thursday, 13th September at a military cemetery in Accra, Ghana. World leaders past and present are expected to pay their last respect to the 7th United Nations Secretary General. Kofi Annan died on 18th August in Switzerland after a short illness. He was 80. He served the United Nations from 1997 to 2006. He was also awarded with the United Nations Nobel Peace Prize in 2001. Well, that's it for Kofi Annan. The Chief Minister, Professor David John Francis, has called on MDAs to focus their deliverables on the 32 commitment projects inside the manifesto of President Bio. He made the statement at the launch of the 2019 financial year policy hearing for ministries, departments and agencies. The launch, which took place at the Bank Complex, King Tom, brought together MDAs, non-state actors, district budget oversight committees, civil society and the media. Aruna Patrick Kamara was there and sent them this report.
32 projects promised by the President's manifesto during the 2018 elections campaign. According to the Chief Minister, Professor David John Francis, the 32 projects in the 2018 elections manifesto by the President are committed to transforming the country. He said improving critical human development, transforming the economy and critical infrastructure are the topmost focus that the new direction will use to move the country forward. Professor Francis said education, improving the economy, agriculture, health, energy, governance, accountability and fight against corruption, water and security are the pointers that the government is using to attack the needed change of the country. He called on MDAs to focus on the 8 pointers on their budget presentation.
Let me reassure you that we have a credible, experienced, seasoned team to lead the change and transformation of this country around these 8 core priorities. Again, that is not to say that it's exclusive of other priorities by ministries, tourism, transportation, but also lands and other areas as well.
The Financial Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Jusu, said the policy hearing is one of the ministry's core values and the hub of devolution, where ministries present their top priorities. MDAs, he said, should present their budget based on the government's priority projects. Mr. Jusu said they are going to engage all government parastatals to discuss how they can mobilize revenue and rationalization of expenditure. He said as a ministry they have developed core values strategic plan for the next 5 years. The Deputy Chairman, Parliamentary Committee on Finance, Honorable Moses Edwin, said the state budget of 2019 should be laid in the well of Parliament on the last Friday of October this year. He encouraged MDAs to present budget activities that are of benefit to the people. The Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Nabila Tunis, said they have presented the draft outline plan to the people for a national ownership of the document. She said as the national planning process is going on with the budget discussion, it will help them to have a proper planning target base. The Minister of Finance, Jacob Jusu Safa, said the financial policy will focus on improving revenue mobilization, and that is why a national monitoring agency is going to be established. He added that automated system is going to be introduced in making sure that revenue generation becomes easier, adding that local councils are going to account for the revenue they generate for them not to depend on the central government budget.
As a result, we've established a fiscal risk management and state-owned enterprise oversight division in the Ministry of Finance. This will ensure that fiscal risks are adequately identified, quantified, monitored, mitigated, and disclosed. That's why I'm very pleased for the support and blessing from State House and particularly the Chief Minister. The moment there's an investment proposal to them, we consult with us to know the fiscal risk associated with it. And to date, I'm happy to say that we've respected our discussion. So those who think that the business as usual, all investment proposals will be accepted by this government, no, we are not that responsible.
Mr. Safa said they are going to reduce the expenses of vehicle maintenance and fuel costs for government vehicles.
Well, as the policy hearing continues, persons with disability want their welfare to be prioritized in the 2019 budget. The Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, Sir Kotikui, spoke to SLBC's Francis Danema.
Persons with disability, and in the effort of mainstreaming disability, which is the bottom line, and if we want to alleviate the suffering of people with disability in this country, we have to mainstream disability across every sector. Having that in mind, I think my expectation will be what I would call disability sensitive budgeting. By that I mean that every aspect of the budget should be looked at holistically, and also with the view of people with disability, with the lens of disability. Because if you miss out in budgeting for the needs, especially special needs for people with disability, you will miss out the whole picture. Irrespective of the fact that the National Commission for Persons with Disability will be presenting its own budget, but it will be prudent enough for specific areas, MDAs, to also look at disabilities when budgeting. Now we're talking about gender budgeting. I think it's high time we started talking about disability sensitive budgeting. For instance, I was privileged to be a consultant in Liberia. And I noticed that the gender ministry in Liberia is budgeting for disability. The Ministry of Justice, under which they have the Human Rights Commission, is budgeting for disability. And then they also have their own National Commission for Persons with Disability. But all of them are doing separate budgeting. Well, we supported Media Watch in order to carry that campaign on Section 39, specifically, which said there should be disability unity for all MPAs, disability, and the Ministry of Social Welfare and various sectors for specific issues.
Let's say you are expecting some of maybe all the ministries to do disability sensitive budgeting. What if this one is not actualized? What are your plans next time?
I will continue to advocate, because advocacies are ongoing. But I would love this government, because I see an window of opportunity, because most of them, all, are very sensitive to issue of disability. So having that in mind, I think we should push this agenda forward for them to embrace that disability should be factored, because the only way, I repeat, the only way we would alleviate the suffering of people with disability is not one of, we have to mainstream disability across every sector. Until we do that, disability will be like a lip service.
He is the Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Persons with Disability, Sir Kotekui, ending that interview with Francis Danema. Advocates on gender issues are also calling on MDAs to ensure that the 2019 budget is gender sensitive. Let's join Princess Gibson as she takes a look.
It's a new line of advocacy for inclusive economic development planning. It is an approach to ensure that the interests of women and men are equally factored in the budget. This is to ensure that their economic needs are represented on an equal basis. Civil society organization Budget Advocacy Network is advocating for gender-sensitive budgeting. Abubakar Kamara is the coordinator.
But in terms of the process itself, we might also want to see in terms of how will they address
the aspect of the gender budgeting. You know, gender budgeting is not a new phenomenon. It's not a new budget. It's just simply how the budget will cater for the needs of men and women. And it's something the Minister of Finance has been putting in their budget cost circular every year, that they expect key ministries to ensure that their budget is gender responsive. And in this new budget, we want to see how, for example, Minister of Education, Minister of Agriculture, how their budget will respond to the needs of men and women equally.
Gladys Hastings Payne is the acting president of Women's Forum.
You know, the government recently now have their priority area, which is education. After education, you take health. After health, you have, you know, in the environmental to Ministry of Health, right? And then after that, you look at the basic, especially the food and nutrition.
The Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, Peter Sampakra, said the 2019 financial year performance-based budget will enhance inclusive economic development.
You cannot say I'm a civil servant, I'm a permanent secretary. At the end of the year, you take your salary. They have to measure you of what you have achieved. When I was the Minister of Finance, they measure me. I will tell them, in fact, within this year, I will make sure I will bring resources in terms of program resources. And within this year, I will make sure we have 2 loans agreement or 4 loans agreement signed with the donors. So I will go around and solicit assistance, financial assistance for the donors for our assistance program. These are all activities they have to measure me. It's not just like me sitting down on my table at the end of every year or every month and collect salary.
The 2019 policy hearing provides a platform to discuss policies of fiscal and monetary consolidation to guide resource allocation to various ministries, departments, and agencies. Princess Gibson, SLBC News.
Many thanks to Princess Gibson for putting that report together. Guma Valley Water Company has resumed water supply following a shutdown on Wednesday morning. The break in water supply was as a result of pipe leakages at Adunkea Godrich. That was reported by the Sierra Leone Roads Authority and the CSE Road Construction Company. Ali Kaba is the Monitoring and Evaluation Manager. He explains more in this interview with Princess Gibson.
The SLRA and CSE people reported to Guma Valley that one of our pipes at Adunkea is leaking and is causing damage to the road, and so we investigated and found out that it was the 22 inches pipe from mile 13 that was leaking, and since then we are making arrangements to fix it up. And on Monday we came out with a public notice that we would be shutting water supply to Freetown on Wednesday. That's today, and that's what we have been doing. Today we are at Adunkea, to fix the leak so that the road would not be damaged. We scheduled the work for 10 hours, that is between 9:00 a.m. and 19 hours, 7 o'clock in the evening, and by then I think we should be finishing with the job. When? This evening. No, in the first place, the pipes bringing water supply to Freetown are very old. Say 40, 50 years old, and so they are prone to frequent burst. But there is no utility in the world that is supplying water that has a mechanism in place to stop leaks and bursts. So it is, but in our case, since the pipe are very old, we are prone to frequent leaks and bursts. But there's no mechanism to stop leakages and bursts and leakages. We just have to deal with them as and when they occur.
He is Ali Kaba, Monitoring and Evaluation Manager, Guma Valley Water Company. So National Revenue Authority, NRA, has held a session with civil society organizations on local revenue generation. The purpose of the engagement was to capacitate civil societies to help disseminate messages on tax collection in the country. The session was held at the Bangura Building Training Suite, Wellington Street in Freetown. Joseph Toure filed in this report.
To boosting the economy and gives assurance of self-reliance and independence over government activities and programs. Over the years, the total compliance of some business entities has been a very serious challenge. It is against this backdrop that the NRA has engaged civil society organizations to help disseminate the message of taxation all across the country. According to the Commissioner, Domestic Tax National Revenue Authority, Ibrahim Suri Kamara, NRA can't do all by itself, and so they are working in solidarity with civil society organizations because they represent all facets of the society. He added that with adequate and correct messages to the people, it will increase revenue collection. He noted that the agency's target is to increase the tax collection from 11% to 20%.
So this is the right direction, and we're ready to support your activities because in turn we're getting value for money at the end of the day. It's better we like commit resources in this kind of activity, which will help us in achieving what we are set up to achieve as an institution.
Manager, Tax Pay Services Registration and Education Policy, Domestic Tax Department, Aminata Mansare said, government needs to do a lot for the country, and as such, there is a need to increase tax mobilization. One of the participants, Executive Director, Civil Society on Service Delivery, Moses Mambu, expressed gratitude for the training and added that it is timely for the country. He said that as citizens, it is our responsibility to pay taxes for which they as civil society will help the government.
If Sierra Leone can able to generate enough money to run itself as a state, a lot of service delivery projects will be realized. And you understand that in the whole of West Africa, we are only collecting 11% out of 20% threshold, you understand, of our domestic GDP, which is way down. And that is due to the fact that people are not complying to tax.
In order to bring our economy from being donor-driven, our gross domestic products need to increase from its present status to a better one.
A delegation from ECOWAS Observation and Monitoring Center on Early Warning is in the country to inform government about developments in the ECOWAS Early Warning Mechanism. Led by its director, the team held discussions with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation at his Tower Hill office. Hawanatu Conte has more.
Technology and associated policies and procedures designed to predict and mitigate the harm of natural and human-initiated disasters and other undesirable events. Early warning mechanism was introduced in the Treaty of Lisbon on Democracy in the European Union. It argues that the mechanism does not contribute to democracy in the EU for 3 reasons. According to the Director, Regional Early Warning Center, Dr. Abdul Latgay, they are in the country to inform them on the ongoing development in the ECOWAS early warning mechanism and government responsibility and role in the effective setup of structures. The U.S. government and other ECOWAS partners propose support for the realization of the project. Installation of the early warning mechanism after 10 years, among others, revealed an increasingly significant gap between warning and response. Dr. Gay said the German government, alongside the European Union, has pledged to support the process of establishing national centers and agencies in Liberia and Sierra Leone. He hoped that once completed, the centers will serve as the solidarity instrument for communication and data exchange towards an integrated sense of mitigating peace and security challenges in their regions. Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Ali Kaba, appreciated the initiative, which he said fit into government policy. He said President Bio is clear about their commitment to foster deeper integration in the sub-region. Dr. Kaba assured the ECOWAS delegation of his ministry support at both bilateral and multilateral levels under the new direction and expressed the hope that their presence will deepen the confidence they have in ECOWAS for greater integration. In another engagement, Ambassador of Ireland to Sierra Leone, Catherine Campbell, has held discussions with the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Nematulai Bachang. She congratulated government for the launching of one of President Bio's flagship programs, the Free Quality Education. She informed the audience of our country's willingness to fund the Sustainable Development Goal 16 and other ways to further strengthen and deepen the existing bilateral relations between the two countries. Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Nematulai Bachang, re-echoed the long-standing bilateral ties between Ireland and Sierra Leone, spanning over 100 years. She commended them for their support in enhancing the socio-economic development of the country through innovative cooperation and business initiatives, which she said are in the New Direction agenda.
Well, many thanks to Hawanatu Conte for putting that report together. It's time for the latest in sports, and Esther Marie Samara is all set. Let's join her.
Good evening and welcome to Sports Update. In this edition, the Minister of Sport, Ibrahim Yalenke, has briefed journalists on the size of delegation that traveled with Leon Stars to Ethiopia. However, Ethiopia defeated Leon 1-0 in Group F qualifiers of the 2019 African Cup of Nations, which will be held in Cameroon. The press conference was held at the Ministry's conference room at the Siaka Stephen Stadium hostels in Freetown. Here is a report. 28 countries, which is the best attendance rate in the history of the competition, are expected to take part with approximately 160 odd swimmers who will battle it out. Defeat to their East African counterparts in the African Cup of Nations qualifiers after Gitane Kebede scored from a penalty spot. 45-man delegation traveled to Ethiopia. According to the Minister of Sport, Ibrahim Yalenke, 37 were officially taken care of by the government, and the rest were not as being reported. He gave a breakdown.
37 delegates were budgeted for the Ethiopia-Sierra Leone encounter. As I sit here, let me just give you a quick breakdown. 23 players we are budgeted for. 8 officials of the technical team we are budgeted for. 2 from the ministry we are budgeted for. 2 for the FA we are budgeted for. The media, 1 media for the SLBC was budgeted for. The coordinator was budgeted for, of course, the team manager.
He maintained that the players had all the support from the government and that there is still hope for the team in their back-to-back match against Black Stars of Ghana. Head coach of Leon Stars, John Kista, apologized to the public for not getting the required result, as he affirmed that this was the best support they had in many years from a government.
Into the match, I thought the players were very in a very upbeat mood, very determined. The camaraderie was very good. I think we were all looking forward to it. I felt we were ready, you know, but again, it's like I said, in football, sometimes, you know, these things happen. Going into the match proper, there are other things I don't want to comment on. I think I'll leave that for the powers that be to look into that. Our preparations going to Ethiopia, has probably been one of the best I've seen. Been around the national team for quite a bit of time now.
Many questions were raised by journalists, among them the readiness of the Siaka Stevens Stadium for the Ghana match. The Anti-Corruption Commission has ordered that the president of the Sierra Leone Football Association and her secretary Aisha Johansson and Christopher Kamara to step aside from their respective positions with immediate effect. That's all for Sport Tonight. I am Esther Maisamura. Thanks for watching.
Many thanks to Esther Marie Samura for giving us the latest in sports. And now to end the news, the main points again. The Director General of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa has updated President Bio on projects funded by the bank in Sierra Leone. The Ministry of Finance has commenced the 2019 policy hearings in Freetown. And the National Revenue Authority has held a session with civil society organizations on local revenue generation. And that's all for News Hour tonight. I've been Willie Buku. Thanks for watching and thanks for your company. Bye-bye.